Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our last FabFems Friday of the summer and the last day of July. My goodness. Thanks to all of you who are joining in. I know that many of you have been joining us each Friday throughout June and July for these fabulous FabFems Fridays, and I'm excited about today. We have two fantastic role models to share with you today who are going to answer your questions, answer some of the questions that we've posed to other panelists throughout our FabFems Fridays. And don't forget, you get to ask them lots of questions as well. My name is Trisha Berry. I am Director of the Women in Engineering program, your host for today's FabFems Friday. As a couple of reminders, you have the little Q&A box on your screen, and you can submit questions there at any time. We will go through some facilitated questions to start with our fabulous guests from Applied Materials and Shell, and then we'll get to your questions, and we should have plenty of time to try to get through as many of your questions as we possibly can. So don't hesitate to start throwing in questions now and again all the way throughout the presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and get us right into it. We are going to flip to this screen so we can see Kate and Marisela a little bit better there. And I'm going to ask them our first question, which is, who are you? Let's hear a little bit about who they are, where they're from, what they're doing, and we have been making sure our FabFems share something fun. What do you do outside the workplace? Tell us something about your hobbies as well. Kate, do you want to start?
Sure. So I'm Kate Omara. I'm a graduate of the university, 2010, so it feels just like yesterday. I'm a chemical engineer by degree, and then just recently, actually in May, I graduated with my MBA from Rice University. So I completely understand what all you guys have been going through in terms of online schooling, because that's how I got to finish my MBA. So kudos to you guys for you've got a little bit more ahead of you, but I know y'all can do it and figure it out. I'm currently the pipeline operations manager for our Houston Control Center for Shell. So all of the pipelines within the U.S., they are all controlled from my control center. I've been with Shell my entire career, so I did two internships back to back when I was in school, and then I hired on full time, and I've been here ever since, and I plan to be here until I retire. So I've had a really, really great career so far, and looking forward to the future. I'm from Houston, so I'm a Texas native, and got to come back to I've lived in Houston ever since I graduated. Let's see, what else? So what do I do for fun? So, well, before all this happened, my husband and I love to travel. So that's obviously, I didn't get to go on a graduation trip. I didn't get to do a lot of the things that we had planned on doing for the rest of the year, but I know that we are all in that boat. So we're just finding ways to have fun at home. So we love to cook. So we have done everything under the sun in terms of stuff that you would never make yourself. For instance, we ground our own meat for burgers earlier this week. Never would have thought I would have done that. So looking for ways to entertain ourselves. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
I think you're going to also have to go ahead and introduce your friend behind you, who is so perfectly positioned that we can see the face.
Yeah, that's Madeline. So I have three dogs and a cat. So you'll probably see the cat, and Madeline likes to sit behind me at all times. She's like a parrot. And then I've got two other dogs. So apologies for any barking that you hear. They like to join calls as well. Yeah, she floats around.
Awesome. Thanks. All right, Marisela.
Hi, my name is Marisela Rios, and I'm originally from South Texas, down in McAllen, but I pretty much say I'm from Austin because I've been here for, over 30 years. So I have a mechanical engineering degree from UT, obviously. December of 94 is when I graduated, or actually December 93. And I work for Applied Materials as an operations manager. I run one of the manufacturing lines for our company, we produce manufacturing equipment, semiconductor manufacturing equipment. So you guys have iPads, iPhones, all that stuff. those were not be capable of being made without our machines. So companies like Intel, Samsung, they buy our machines to make chips. So if you guys have gone through any of our presentations, you know some of the process of semiconductor. So let me see what else. What do I like to do outside of work? Workout. I used to do a lot of taekwondo. I'm a 3rd degree black belt, but right now what I just mainly like to do is go and work out. I did get a new puppy. She's at home right now. Well, she's not a puppy. She's 2 years old. It's an English boxer. Her name is Fiona. She's really cute. She gave me an evil eye this morning when I left because it was her first day me leaving. But we also have, UT Women in Engineering program is also, I'm trying to get the presentation up. Oh well. They're a grantee of one of our programs called Generation Girl. So I don't know if Trisha's kind of mentioned that to you guys at all. So Generation Girl is an initiative by our foundation at Applied Materials that's working to make sure that all girls have the opportunity to reach their max potential. So we engage with nonprofit organizations. You guys have heard of Latinitas, Con Mi Madre, Girl Star. They are some of our grantees along with UT Women in Engineering program. And Trisha, of course, is always, our good friend here, and we do anything to help her out. Especially when her and Michelle call me, we need help. Okay, I'm there. So welcome. And you guys, I know, have had a little different schooling this year in regards to COVID, and I'm hoping everybody's staying out there, staying safe, keep your mask up. But thank you.
Awesome. Both Kate and Marisela are some of our fabulous alums and volunteers too. So not only do they come and represent their companies whenever we ask and whenever their companies are participating in our programming, but they also come and represent good women in engineering and always are happy to share their stories. So again, thrilled you all are here today. Let's talk a little bit more about your majors and your pathway, because a lot of our students that are listening are still trying to maybe figure out what they want to study, or maybe they're getting ready to head in this fall to UT, and so they're still trying to understand, did I make the right choice? Is this where I should be? So can you talk a little bit more about why you chose your major? We have Kate with chemical engineering and Marisela with mechanical engineering, and a little bit maybe about your career path, and if you have an example of what you actually do as an engineer. That's always a big question, like what really is that work like? Kate, do you want to start?
Sure. So when I was in high school, I credit the fact that I'm a chemical engineer to my AP chemistry high school teachers. They were phenomenal, and I fell head over heels for chemistry, giant nerd. And I loved it, and I was always really good at math, really enjoyed math. And so when I was trying to figure out what to do for, the future, neither of my parents were engineers, so it was a career field that I wasn't necessarily familiar with. And so I did a little bit of research on, I've always played the chess game several steps ahead. So my parents implemented that in me younger of when you go to school, what's your plan after school? So, if you're going to go and get an English major, you're going to go and get an art degree, or you're going to go get an engineering degree, what's the next step after that? Not just, 4 years after graduation, you're sitting there going, oh, I don't know what my next step is. So when I was looking into that, I looked into the field of engineering in general, because I thought that's a really good combination of math and science. Two things I really like, two things I was really good at. And then just shifted naturally to chemical engineering because of the focus on chemistry. So I kind of matched up what I was good at, and then looked at the fact that engineering is a very healthy field to go into in terms of employment and many opportunities across the board. So that's kind of how I landed on chemical engineering. And then once I got to UT, I loved my classes. Great professors, loved the department, and so it really solidified for me that I made the right choice. But I do understand, I had friends that they started out in aerospace and they switched to mechanical, or they started out in mechanical and switched to electrical. So it wasn't unheard of that maybe you figured out engineering was right for you, but you didn't quite get on the right discipline. And there are avenues to go between the disciplines. I do know that's possible, but it is always good to try and figure out to the best of your ability. I think just makes your life easier if you kind of figure out what you think you want to do beforehand. So for me, looking at that long-term view helped narrow down where I wanted to go in terms of my major. And then as for what I've done with that is I started out in kind of a very typical chemical engineering role. So if you're not familiar with chemical engineering, a lot of the times what you are focused on is the fluid. So some of your other mechanical engineers are going to be more of your hard engineers on the actual machinery, the piping, and a lot of the physics behind us, the construction of things. Whereas chemicals, you're focused on the fluid. So you're doing hydraulics, you're doing process engineering, you're modeling reactions. So that's where I started out at Shell. I started out as a process engineer for capital projects. So, doing small scale projects and doing the fluid evaluation side of things. So, what are the typical temperatures and pressures that this fluid's going to see in, we'd be replacing a section of piping or something like that. And I'd also be help with some of the hydraulic calculations to make sure that we wouldn't overpressure the line, that we wouldn't, potentially be introducing any safety risks. From there, I went into a field that's actually a very multidisciplinary field, which is control systems. So at Shell, we have mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, chemical engineers, and really, honestly, I mean, those are just the ones that work there. But I think anybody with an engineering degree can go in that discipline because it is that you have a lot of electronics applications. So as a control system engineer, I was responsible for both the instrumentation in my unit as well as the computer system that ran the unit. So a lot of the programming behind, our flow controllers and pressure valves, things of that nature. And so that discipline really lent yourself to, you didn't necessarily have to have, a specific type of engineering. It's more your critical thinking skills, which I think is one of the coolest things about engineering. And as you guys will probably find out, is a lot of times your engineering degree can be applied across a ton of different uses, because at the heart of your engineering degree is your critical thinking. How do you solve a problem? Yeah, there's a whole lot of nuts and bolts about, if it's a, reactor design, if it's, you don't want me designing an airplane, things of that nature. But in terms of your problem solving skills and how you can assess a situation, figure out, okay, how do we go from here? How do I get all the inputs I need? Where, let's test it out. Let's build a prototype. Let's, figure it out before building something full scale. And so that's something that's really, really awesome about your engineering background, because then what that allows you to do is, if you are interested, which is what I've done with my career, is I've taken my critical thinking and problem solving skills and moved up the management ladder and more into the business side of the world. So after I did control systems engineering, I was the economic model coordinator for a chemical plant, which is a giant linear programming model that essentially was taking all your financial inputs for the plant and saying, all your feed costs this, all your products cost this right now. Go tell me what the optimal feed slate is for the unit. And some of the things you can tweak and say, I want to make more of product A and less of product B this week. Or I want to make all product A, no product B, because product B isn't in the money. So I was responsible for programming the model, and I got to use a really, really cool combination of my engineering skills, because the model's only as good as the if it's modeling what the plant's actually doing. So I had to be able, as an engineer, to go in there and assess, is this configured correctly? Is this actually modeling model condition, or the unit conditions? But then also I learned the business side of things. So before that, I really didn't know. I mean, I knew my unit would be in the money if I was making stuff, but I didn't really know, well, how much? How much am I adding to the bottom line? Why is it really important that I achieve this certain ratio of reaction in my unit? And so that was really, really interesting. From there, I decided I wanted to broaden my skill set and work in a different business. Because I had been in our Deer Park chemical plant my whole career before that. And I went to our Houston lubricants plant, where I was our lab and product quality manager. And that was my emphasis. So I controlled all the formulations for your Pennzoil, Quaker State, Formula Shell, all those products you see. We make right right here in Houston at HLP. It's the world's largest lubricant plant, which is a fun fact. And but on top of that, I also, similar to you broaden your skill set. Not only was I just the lab and product quality manager, I was an operations manager. So I backfilled for the blending department. I backfilled for the packaging lines. I really learned a lot more hands-on of a manufacturing site that manufactured finished products, which was really cool because for the most part, as a chemical engineer, unless you go work for like Frito-Lay or Procter and Gamble, you deal with stuff that goes in pipelines and tanks that you probably never see. And it was really, really cool to work in a plant where it's like, I see that bottle of Pennzoil on the shelf and I know that I made that. Not me specifically, but I controlled that formulation that went in there and made sure it was tested correctly. So that was a really, really cool experience. And then, kind of one of the things that I tell students is just as important for you to figure out what you don't like is what you do like. And both will serve you well as you figure out what's going forward in your career. And for me, what I did like was operations. So you can see that theme throughout my careers. I'd always been in manufacturing sites and manufacturing plants. And I really, really liked operations. And so an opportunity came up for me to be the control center manager in pipeline, and I made another jump over into pipeline. And that's where I am really getting back to my engineering roots because I am responsible for looking at hydraulic releases. So if I have a pipeline and I have a relief event, how do I determine if there's a leak or not? And so, from your pressures and temperatures and looking at all that. So it's kind of come full circle in that I'm progressing through my career and I'm moving up. But at the heart of it, that engineering skill set has really, really served me well. And it's what made me competitive for this role. I think they've had operations managers in the past in multiple different roles that don't necessarily have the engineering background, but it certainly makes you stand out. So I think I just rambled a whole bunch there, but that's in a nutshell kind of my career to date and how I've applied chemical engineering.
Well, that's awesome. Before Marisela talks, I was going to make a couple of connections that our students that have gone through our summer camps might have made with what you just shared. One of the engineering challenges that they had to do or could choose from recently was around a pipeline. We called it pipeline party. So they had to get something from one end of the room to the other through a pipeline. And so what you're talking about how to get things from one place to the other is exactly what they did in their engineering project. Some of the students could chose to do the ship the chip example challenge, and that one was where they had to create a package that would safely ship a Pringles chip. So we talked a lot about packaging and how engineering comes into play with packaging, which is exactly what you talked about with that formulation and with figuring out, sometimes how to get that package out there and what to put in it. And so that was another piece of the project. So hopefully students that have been participating in our camp, you're seeing some of those connections with those engineering challenges that we did and the real world. And I know that Marisela's examples are going to come right into some of those other challenges that you had as well. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. So unlike Kate, I pretty much did not know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be an engineer. That I did know since I was in 6th grade. I'm the youngest of 13 kids that my parents had. And so anytime my mom was trying to teach me how to cook, I was always asking why. She would always tell me, well, you got to put this first. Why? Well, you got to put this much. Why? She's like, go outside with your dad. So I would always go outside with him, and he's like, okay, we're going to change the oil in the tractor. Why? Well, because this, and this, right? He'd explain everything to me. We're going to put this much. Why? Well, it needs this much fluid, this much volume. This is what's going to happen. So from that day, I always was interested in the mechanical portion of stuff and how things came together, how they worked. So anytime something broke, I'm like, can I have it? And so I would take it apart. Didn't always put it back together, but, I tried. I was only 9, 10 years old. But from that day, I always knew that I wanted to head into something like that. Never had an engineer in my family. Actually, my parents never went to school. My mom did not know how to read or write. They both only spoke Spanish. So I'm a first gen. So if any of y'all can identify as a first gen, I totally understand what you're going through. Going to UT, I came from a very small school. My graduating high school class was 174 people. So we were tiny. So coming to UT, it was like, whoa, this is just like nuts. It was my physics class was bigger than my entire high school. So, like I said, I got here and I went to the orientation program, and I was like, I have no clue what I want to do. I chose mechanical because it was just something that I identified with at the time. Even though when I graduated, I was like, I'm going to be an aerospace engineer. I'm going to go to space. I mean, I had like that whole dream. I was going to work at NASA, and do all this stuff. And well, then I changed my mind when I got here because I really identified with mechanical when they were going through all the presentations. I did get eventually to meet a couple of astronauts through the engineering programs, so that was the best part. Um, so, like I said, I really identify with mechanical because I'm just very hands-on. And so when I graduated, I got a job here at Applied. So I've been here for over 25 years with Applied, and I've had multiple different jobs. I started as a manufacturing technician on the floor, actually building our equipment. So if you ever get to come out here for a tour, and that's always open to me to bring people out here. Our equipment's huge. And so our company wanted to tell our customers that, hey, all our equipment's getting built by engineers. They pretty much figured out that was going to be hard to sustain with a bunch of engineers on the manufacturing floor. So they started pulling us out into different positions. I went into another engineering position, stayed there for a couple of years, and then somebody convinced me that I would be good in management. I'm not sure why I listened to them, but I went ahead into a supervisory position in manufacturing. And so I did that for a couple of years, and I switched back and forth between engineering, operations, management, uh, program management within engineering. So my engineering had to do a lot of bringing in new products. How do we build it? How do we test it? Is the design correct? So a lot of times I was looking at, they designed this component. It doesn't fit with this other component. Why not? Pulling up the drawings, looking at all the tolerancing, are there tolerance stack ups? We also had to look at how we ship things or how our suppliers ship things to us. So we had to look at the packaging for that material because some of our components are made out of ceramics, out of quartz, out of unique material that is so hard to get that it is just, Trillium is one of the hardest materials that we can get, and they would come in damaged. And it's like, okay, we got to relook at the packaging that we're telling our supplier to put these things in. So I would look at that as well, right? As they were getting damaged. So we had to do drop tests. We had to do vibration tests. Just a lot of things that we have to do and look at. So I did that as a new products engineer. I did it as a project manager. I was actually my own engineer. So I'm not sure how that worked out, but so did that for several years, moved back into management. Then I was like, you know what? I want to start my engineering again, kind of freshen up on all the latest stuff that we're doing as a company. So I moved back into engineering position, supporting one of our module areas. So I was supposed to be what we call a manufacturing engineer. So supporting any issues that the floor may have as far as putting our equipment together, testing our equipment. So any issues that they had, I was going to help with that. Well, I had previous experience in configuration for our company. And so they kind of moved me into that position because they needed help. I was like, okay, I'll do it. As Trisha knows, usually I say, yes, I'll do it. So I went to go do that. And then actually about 9 months into it, they're like, we need you to do this other role because you're really good at it. So I moved back into project management and ran that program for them, fixing, identifying our nonconformances, basically anything that our machines aren't working right at our customer site, it gets sent to us. We have to review why. Is it our testing? Is it our design? What is it? I actually had a project that I worked on that identified some issues as when I was in the engineering role, and I went ahead and brought it with me as into my project management role. And I ended up creating a project with a couple other engineers from my group and another group and the supplier two suppliers. I had a cross-functional team with two suppliers as in our quality department, and we developed this big project. First year out, it saved 2.4 million as far as, because we looked at packaging, because we were damaging some of the material that was coming in. We were damaging it as we were shipping it back out. So we relooked at that packaging. I was able to work with one supplier and convince them to give me their design on their packaging. And so then I convinced the other supplier to look at the design and develop their own. So they actually worked with each other, and which is sometimes when you get out into the workforce, you have you have suppliers that are competing for your demand or your work. They don't necessarily like to share information, but it was good for us, that I was able to develop the relationship with both suppliers, that they were willing to do that. I actually talked to the VP of one of the companies, and he's like, yeah, no problem, I'll send it to you. So following year, it saved an additional 4 million. So I was really proud of that project. I then decided to jump back into operations management. I am actually the first Hispanic female in this role in over 50 years for my company. I am one of very few, in one hand that you can count, of women in operations management in manufacturing. We have women in engineering management, we have them in finance, we have them in HR, in all these other roles. But as far as the manufacturing side, we have very, very few. We only have 2 women directors that I do use as role models and as mentors. So if I have questions or issues, I can connect with them. I have a lot of younger women that are supervisors and managers that will ping me for advice. I had one that just pinged me a couple of weeks ago. She went into management, and I was like, okay, if you ever need anything, she's like, yes, I am going to call you. I'm like, bless you.
Thank you. Let's go have it again.
Find those mentors, find those role models. And so, like I said, I've had a variety of jobs, and I realized that throughout all of them, like Kate was saying, you're always using your engineering troubleshooting. That is key in every role that you're going to take, whether it's in the actual assembly, testing, packaging, management, operations, manufacturing. It doesn't matter. You're always going to use that troubleshooting of looking, always revert to that 2-year-old you. Why? Why did it happen? Why is it this way? Why are you doing it that way? I'm like the annoying 2-year-old in all my meetings, with my team, with my upper management. And I'll go into meetings and they're like, well, we're doing this. Why? Well, we've always done it that way. Why? Well, it's because why? I'm always that why in the back. So we've been able to change a lot of things within my group. I've been in this position for almost 3 years now in August. And just looking at things differently, and we've been able to just develop a lot of different process within this group. And a lot of people have told me, you've managed to change this group a lot from where it was. So, like I said, you may not know what you want to go into when you first start. That's okay. Sometimes you'll develop it when you get into the workforce and you realize, you know what, that wasn't for me after all, but I can still use what I learned and keep growing from it.
Awesome. Yeah, and we talked a lot about that engineering design process, which you've talked about, Marisela, and the students who did the ship the chip challenge. One of the tests was drop, 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 drop to see if it broke. So students, I was not making crazy things up in that process for that challenge. You did exactly what those engineers are doing in the real world. So I'm gonna throw one more question out to our fabulous panelists, and then we're gonna get to your questions for those of you participating. So we see several questions coming in. Keep throwing them in there. One of the questions that we keep asking all of our FabFems panelists is about imposter syndrome. Have you ever had doubts? Have you ever felt like you didn't belong? And a lot of our students are trying to figure out, is this the right place for me? What if I don't feel like I'm supposed to be here? How do you overcome that? What do you do to push through on that if you've ever felt that before? Kate, you want to
It's
start?
So funny.
Okay, go ahead.
Sure. So funny you asked this. I literally was just having this conversation with my husband about like last week. So the job I'm in now, I've only been in for about 3 months, and it it was a promotion for me. I've gone up and I'm getting higher in management. And I told him, I said, I feel like I'm a kid in the room with all the adults, and I don't know that I'm supposed to be here. And my husband is, I thankfully is my biggest cheerleader, and he's like, why wouldn't you? You've done all the hard work. You have all these accomplishments under your belt. That's why would you not think you're qualified? And I think that as women, it's unfortunately something we tend to do is second guess ourselves, whereas our male counterparts don't necessarily do that as much. And one of the ways that and so part of it is just really looking back, and for me it's kind of evaluating, or not evaluating, but looking back at my accomplishments and what I've done, and kind of convincing myself like, no, I mean, it's nice to have someone tell you that, but then you still got to convince yourself at the end of the day. But one of the ways that it became really apparent to me that you kind of do that second guessing yourself, and am I really qualified to do this, is so in Shell, the way that you move from role to role is you post on it. So they'll have a job description up and they'll say, we're looking for someone that, this is the skill set of the job. Here's the roles and responsibilities and whatnot. And when I was looking at roles early on in my career, I was talking with like my mentor, and I was like, I think I could do this role, but I don't meet all of the characteristics. And he looked at me and he goes, if you met all of the characteristics on that job posting, what are you going to learn from it? And he goes, your male counterparts maybe meet one out of those 10 bullet points, and they're probably going to put their name in the hat. Why wouldn't you? And that was a really, really eye-opening thing for me that I have taken to heart. I thankfully got that career advice very early on in my career, and it served me well, because when I go out there looking for my next job, when it's time for some of that stuff to come up with, but you still find yourself doing that. Even all that being said, with that advice. So like for this job, when my mentor sent me the post, and I was like, I've never worked in pipeline before. Do you really think I can do it? And my boss is like, absolutely. You've got operations experience. You've got the critical thinking. You've got people management. Why wouldn't you? You can learn the other stuff. It'll be stuff that you can figure out. So it's always good to find those mentors early on that can be your kind of sounding board and reinforce that. I found that's helpful, but that's kind of, even all that being said, it's a constant battle. I find that myself, that I still fight, which is funny. I mean, and that's just part of, it's good to recognize it. So as long as you recognize it, that's great.
Thanks, Kate.
So same, right? I've been in rooms where I'm like, am I really supposed to be here? And then I look at it and say, okay, I'm only 5'6". I'm not that tall. But you know what? I'm the tallest person in this room. Always feel like you're the tallest person in that room, especially as a woman going into a manufacturing company, right? I'm sure Kate has experienced it, where you're the only female, and you guys have already experienced it too, in classes where you're the only female or one of very few in the room. Speak your mind. Never let anybody talk over you, right? If you're talking about something and they try to, well, let me do what I do. Excuse me, let me finish, right? And I am not afraid to do that. I've done it to my directors. I've done it to other directors. I've done it to the VP. If I'm speaking, I want to finish what I'm saying. So don't be afraid to do that, right? Like I said, being the only Hispanic female in this role, I constantly am like, am I qualified to do what I'm doing? When I first applied for it, same thing, right? We have our generic, this is the role. And I'm like, what? Like, I didn't understand half of what was on there. I'm like, throw my name in there, because you can't stop yourself from looking at that and say, well, I'm not qualified. Just like when you're applying for a scholarship, right? You're like, well, I don't qualify for this, and this. So put it in there. Put your name in the bucket. You lose more by not putting your name in the bucket. You're going to swim one way or another in that water. And you will figure out a way how to stay afloat, whether it's on your own or asking for somebody to help you, holding a hand out saying, please help me. Here's my hand. Take it. Show me where I need to go. And that's where your mentors, your colleagues, your coworkers are going to come into play because they will help you when you start questioning whether you're qualified or not. They are some of your biggest cheerleaders. But like Kate said, you are your biggest cheerleader. If you don't believe in yourself, you're going to end up having second doubts of what you're doing. Stop that. Stop that now if you're in college, right? I did it my second year there, and I almost left. Luckily, I had a engineering director that said, you're not leaving. I had a best friend that said, if you leave, I will go get you. And I got a tutor. I got, all this extra help. I was in, people were just willing to work with me to help me get through that second year and show that, yes, I can do it. Same here, right, at work. If I don't know how to do it, I am the first one to say, I don't know what you're talking about, right? My test technicians, they're like way out there. And they start talking to me about, oh, we're testing this, blah, 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 blah. And I look at them like, you bring it down a level. I am the operations manager, but that doesn't mean I know how to test it, right? But I can figure out who to go get it from. A lot of people laugh at me because they'll try to work an issue, and if they're not getting resolution, they just say, adding Marisela. And then they're like, it's like magic. It's like you sprinkle fairy dust, and people start responding once they see your name. I'm like, because they're terrified of me. Not necessarily terrified, but they know I will call. And if they don't answer my call, I will call their manager. And if they don't answer, I have gone all the way up to directors and VPs, and I've had them respond to me. I had one of our logistics company managers tell me, we were in a meeting and we were told, if you call, email, or IM us, we are to drop what we're doing and get your resolution done. Because our job is to make sure you're happy. Because if you're not happy, we know that you're going to make some waves. Well, that's my job. My job is to make those waves for my employees, to make them be able to do their own jobs a lot easier. So over the years, and it's taken me a little 25, to realize that, yes, I am where I'm supposed to be, and I'm going to continue doing what I'm going to do, and I'm going to continue opening my voice up. I will be there for myself. I will be there for my employees. I will be there for my coworkers. I will be there for students that IM me, email me, call me, that I run into anywhere. I've done several panels. I've done conferences. I was just on Latinitas last weekend. And just, anybody that asks me a question, I'm going to try and help you one way or another. So.
Well, speaking of questions, we got a lot that are coming in, and we only have about 15 minutes to answer them. So here's my challenge for each of y'all. We're going to ask as many questions as we can, so try to get to the point and be somewhat quick, and we can try to make our way through as many as possible. I hate cutting y'all off, though, because it's such great information you're sharing. So I'm going to turn it over to Sammy, our fabulous Women in Engineering Program crew member, who is managing our Q&A fields, and let her take it from here to ask y'all some questions.
Hi, the first question I have is for Kate, and it's, do you think the value proposition for an engineer in oil and gas is still worth pursuing given the sharpest downturn this industry is experiencing now and with the layoffs? And then I'm also going to combine that with another question, which was asking, do engineers in the oil and gas industry experience layoffs when prices drop as they are doing right now?
All right. So before I get to that, I do want to emphasize, Marisela said something that I think is probably one of the most crucial things that you guys can take away. Never stop asking questions. Never be afraid. You are only going to do yourself a disservice if you sit there and you don't get something, whether that be in class. And I understand asking questions is scary, so go ask the TA after class. But if you don't get something or do not hesitate. The only person that's going to suffer from not asking the question is you. So I'm not afraid to, I tell all of my employees, like, I'm going to ask some dumb questions, and I want you guys to do the same. It's a two-way street. So just wanted to reinforce that, because I think that's probably one of the best pieces of advice. So oil and gas. So what you guys are seeing, and this is Kate's view on the world, is that you guys are starting to see a transformation of what the industry typically looked like to what it's going to be in the future. So oil and gas, barrel of crude, gasoline, diesel as we know it, it's not going to go away immediately. It's changing economically. How you get it out of the ground, the best way to do it, the best way to refine it, especially as you have increased scrutiny on your emissions, which is absolutely, I think the right thing to do. That's your license to operate. If you've got to keep the world in good shape, otherwise why are you making product? So it's shifting though. So how you traditionally made things, now it's figuring out what's a new way to do it. What's a new way to do it with all these different constraints, in addition to what are different energy sources? So, oil and gas is going to be here for a while. That is not going to be, gone instantaneously. But the other thing to consider is that oil and gas and a barrel of crude isn't necessarily just energy. That goes into every single piece of plastic. This computer I'm talking on, this plastic came from a barrel of crude at the end of the day. There are still so many things that come from that product that it still is an absolutely a good value proposition as an engineer, because one, you're still going to be producing the chemicals, the base chemicals, the specialty chemicals, derivatives. You're still going to be producing oil and gas. But also, as an engineer, you have the tool set to propel us into the future. What does the next step look like? How do we solve these problems? How do we get to a healthier solution for creating energy for the world, but also keeping the world intact so it's going to last another however million years, hopefully? I'm not an aerospace engineer, so I'm sure a planet or something's going to take us out before then. But so I still certainly think that the value proposition is there. It's just changing. It's not looking the same exact way of how it did, the past 50, 100 years. The energy is looking, or the industry is looking different. That being said, as an engineer, there certainly are layoffs that do happen. I mean, you are running a business at the end of the day, so the business has to remain profitable. And so sometimes that does mean that the engineering roles are affected. What I will say is what I've found throughout my career is that the closer you are to the pipe, the better, in times of fluctuation, the better off things seem to be. Some of the roles that are a little bit more functional and potentially are a little bit more strategic or not as closely tied to the assets and supporting the actual technical stuff, those tend to be some of where you shed first. So the closer you are to the asset, I've found that seems to be more stable. That being said, sometimes you sell an asset. Sometimes the asset is not profitable, or you got a great deal on it. And as the technical person on the unit, you may be going with that asset to its new owner, or you may choose to find something else. So you're not immune to it. And it certainly does happen. But, the other thing is that a lot of times layoffs are one of the criteria is performance. So if you're doing a phenomenal job and you prove your value as an employee, so maybe your job goes away, but they can find another home for you. You can apply on a different role. So it is scary. I mean, the layoffs are never a fun situation. The industry, Shell's doing layoffs. We've had to do that as well. But you find a way to make your organization lean, how to make it, the best that can be to last around, and you work with what you have.
Awesome. Thank you, Kate. Next, I'm going to switch to Marisela, and I'm going to ask about 3 questions. Which roles did you find to be easier, technical or managerial roles, / which ones did you like more? Also, do you have a project management certification? And 2, does Applied Materials hire chemical engineers, or what engineers does Applied Materials hire?
Wow. Okay. So, which one did I find it easier? They're both hard. So they each have their unique challenges. Because when in the technical role, depending on what you're doing, because even though we have what we call manufacturing engineers on site, they all do different things. So it's been very much of a challenge for even our HR to figure out how to, put people in those roles. But we have our own university within our campus where we're training people. If we bring in any software, if you've been out of design for a while, you can go and take classes to refreshen up your skill set. I had to do that when I went back into engineering this last time because I've been out from using some of our design equipment. So I struggled, but I got through it and I started designing. And plus, the engineers that I worked with would help me on how to, use some of the programs. So, and as far as managerial, right, we've added a lot more classes for management, interpersonal relationships, classes like that, so they can help you, plus your mentors. Now, they're each rewarding on their own side, but what the role that I found the most rewarding was actually in management because I got to deal with the human aspect. And as Trisha ever talks to you about me, she knows I'm very much a people person. And, my friends tell me that I will talk to the wall and the wall will talk back to me. But, I find that side of who I am and what I've done in this company is what I find more rewarding. It's also one of the hardest roles there is because I am having to deal with the HR side of things and you hear absolutely everything. They will call you from the littlest issue to the biggest issue. You will be told all kinds of things, right? I've gone to HR jail before, right? And I had to deal with that. So you start learning how to interact with people sometimes. But I have found it to be one of my most rewarding positions here at the company. And I think part of it may be my female side of my compassion is, being able to identify with that. So I have majority of my employees are men, always have been. Over the years, I've had hundreds and hundreds of employees, and probably about 95 to 97% have been men. And I'm able to identify with them, but I'm also able to say, you know what, this is my more gentle side. But as some people tell me, you're the nicest, meanest person I've ever met. So they're both hard, but like I said, my most rewarding was managerial. I do not have an NPM, but Apply does help you with that. We will, have you go to classes and help support your certification that we also do through our university. So I did take classes and I just never finished up the test. And it's because I think I was always switching roles and just going into the management role. I was like, I like what I'm doing. I like where I'm going right now. And does Applied Materials hire chemical engineers? Yes, we do. They're mostly in our Santa Clara facilities area, which is our research and development. So all the latest and coolest and newest stuff is out there. The times I've gone out there, I'm just always in awe. Some of the latest that we've done has been the virtual reality tours through there, and they've been amazing. We hire mechanical, we hire electrical, we hire, our main three are chemical, mechanical, and electrical. As far as the chemical portion, it has to do a lot of with the process design, working with our customers of what they're trying to do with the resistors, with the chips, the different, we're dealing in nanometers, so we're having to go to the smallest possible size there is, right? Everybody wants it fast, everybody wants it small. So, we've got everybody in Santa Clara that deals with that. And here in Austin and in Singapore, those are two main manufacturing sites. We do have satellite sites throughout the world. We support our customers throughout the world everywhere. But we do hire those main three engineering disciplines. Yeah, I think those were all my questions.
Great, thank you so much. Yes, it was awesome. And then finally back to Kate, what does Shell look for in interns? And does interning with Shell make you more likely to get hired with Shell?
Okay, so good news for you guys. I'm actually the technical recruiting manager for the University of Texas for Shell, so I can speak to this very well. I do that in addition. I do that as kind of an extracurricular activity, and I love it. So what do we look for in interns? So obviously there's going to be a GPA cutoff. So 3.2 GPA. So you got to keep your grades up. But beyond that, we love to hire people that do things other than school. So we want to see involvement in student organizations. We want to see if you potentially play sports. We want to see, all sorts of those extracurricular activities and those opportunities that you've shown leadership. Those opportunities for you to show that you can do more than just study. To put it kind of bluntly, because we love well-rounded employees. We want people that have that capacity, but also have the ability to do, other things as well. So we will be doing internships next summer. So we do not participate in the co-op program. All of our internships are over the summer time period. This summer looked a little bit different than previous summer. So this summer we did convert to an all virtual program. So it was a little bit different. Hopefully the plan is we don't have to do that again next summer. We can resume in-person internships, but obviously we will play that by ear, and we will adapt as the world tells us what's going on. And then does it make you more likely? So yes, we love to hire from our interns, because if you think about it, it's a trial period of where you get to try out ChE and see, does this company fit for me? But also we're going to try you out and see if you fit within, what we want out of an employee. So if you have a successful internship, that is absolutely, it's already a tried and true thing. We've already gotten to, probationary period. If you think about it, we've gotten to try you out for a couple of months. And it's great. So we certainly do love to hire from our interns, either if you're a sophomore, bringing you back for another internship, or if you're a junior, bringing you back full time. I think, what was the last part of that? I think, and where to apply. So everything, to apply for ChE, you go to ChE's website, and it's all done completely through the ChE website. So you won't see, the resume drop, the ECAC, as you guys get more familiar with the university's recruiting resources, we do everything within the ChE system. So that's where you would find that. So if you just go to ChE.com and search around for careers, or you can even Google like ChE careers, you'll find the link pretty easily.
Awesome. So I'm going to throw out my last question for the two of y'all. This time goes so fast. So as we have all of these fabulous participants today, many of them still in high school, some of them heading into their undergrad career, some of them already as undergrad engineering students. What is one last tip or words of wisdom? You've given lots throughout this time, but maybe one last reinforcement of something that you've already shared, or some new tip or words of wisdom that you have for all of these fabulous participants. Marisela, you want to start?
Sure. For me, it's don't give up, no matter what, right? Being a first gen, I could have easily said this isn't for me. I don't have any support from home because nobody understands what I'm going through. But I said, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to show where I'm coming from. I'm going to show where I'm going. And unbeknownst to me, my nephews and nieces were watching what I was doing. I have a niece that's graduating this December with her civil engineering degree. So always keep fighting for what you want to do. In Spanish, si se puede. Yes, you can do it. So keep fighting that fight. Keep empowering yourself. Keep empowering other women, right? Because there's your little sisters, your little cousins. They're watching you. You've watched others ahead of you. So just keep, showing that it is possible to do it.
Hey.
So two things come to mind. So the first, kind of similar to the question thing, do not be afraid to ask for help. You have at the university 1,000,001 different resources. And for some of you, so you could have, high school was easy. You get to college and then it's a completely different ballgame. Because that's what happened for me. I did high school, I didn't have to study, everything like that. And then I got slammed in my face of, how do I study? Like, how do I figure this out? And so thankfully, through the Women in Engineering program, through the Cockrell School, through the UT school itself, you have 1,000,001 different resources. So do not be afraid to ask for help. It doesn't make you look weak. It doesn't make, you a lesser student. If anything, it means that you're going to get it better than someone because they're not asking for help. They may be too afraid to ask. So don't be afraid to seek out those resources. Because I know it's a hard thing to, especially if you're someone that hasn't asked for help before. It's hard. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. You got to get over that hump. But once you do, you will definitely be better served for it. The second thing is it is okay to change your mind. So one of the things that I've talked to students before is that, they'll go to a student organization that, they know they want to start building up those extracurriculars, and they go to 2 meetings and they're like, well, I've already gone to 2 meetings and I guess I'm going to sign up and I guess I'm going to continue on with this, even though they don't necessarily, it's not the right fit for them. It's okay. You can try stuff out. It's a huge university. You can go, if you go to something and it's an organization or some sort of activity or even a class, an elective that you get in there and you're like, I don't know that this is what I want to do. I don't know that this is the best fit for me. It is okay. Don't be a martyr and stick with it just for the heck of it. Like you can change your mind, and certainly use your resources to bounce ideas off of. If it's something that you're thinking about and you're not quite sure, well, is this the fit for me? You've got counselors, you've got resources, you've got mentors, you have a lot of people that you can really throw that off of, and hopefully they can give you a good sounding board and make you feel comfortable with whatever decision you choose to do next.
Awesome.
One little thing to that, use the Women Engineering program. It wasn't around when I was there, so I'm really sad that it wasn't there for me. EOE was, and that's actually why I stayed in school, was using EOE. So use, like Kate was saying, use those resources that are there for you. Use the TAs, use the tutors that you can have, all that is there for you, but definitely the Women Engineering program. You're already taking advantage of it. By being here, and keep doing that, keep reaching for that, keep asking for that help. Like Kate said, ask those questions. The only bad question is the question that was not asked.
Thank you. And I'll just echo that. We don't want you to head out of engineering or feel like you don't belong or any of those things without coming and talking to us. We're definitely here for you. These days virtually. We're around virtually. But when we can all get back on campus, definitely in person as well. So, oh my goodness, what amazing advice and what amazing stories you all shared. Hopefully students who are participating, you learned a little bit and got some good tips about things to consider and a little bit more insight into our fabulous corporate partners, ChE and Applied Materials, and about the types of jobs and work that you can do in those companies as engineers. Thank you again to Kate and Marisela for joining us today. Thank you again to ChE and Applied Materials for supporting our programs and our summer camps this summer. We're going to finish it up with just a couple of more things as reminders to everybody out there. Continue to explore, connect with role models, read about our fabulous STEM role models that are out there across Texas and beyond. FabFems.org is a resource you can use to search for STEM role models. It's a national database that's led by the National Girls Collaborative Project. So take advantage of researching, reading, connecting with STEM role models in there. Also, don't forget that all of our FabFems Fridays are on YouTube, as well as tons of other role model stories and examples, and we're adding more and more videos each day. So go back and check that out when you can. Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you'll get notices when new videos are posted. And then this is our last FabFems Friday of the summer. So for those of you that have joined in for all or many of our FabFems Fridays, or even if you just joined us for this one today, thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming into our FabFems Fridays journey. We feel like they've been somewhat successful, fairly successful, with lots of participation and tons of questions. And so we'll probably continue something like this as we go into the fall and the spring semester. So stay tuned for that. We'll make sure to share that out widely. So again, thank you, Kate. Thank you, Marisela. Thank you, ChE. Thank you, Applied Materials. Y'all are awesome. Have a fabulous weekend, everybody, and a wonderful rest of your day.